I don't know. I still think that's generous, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think at one point Derek Lewis was batting a fly out of his way, and they counted four punches with that.
So, is it psychological for Francis Ngannou? He got monstered by Stipe. He got humiliated over 25 minutes. Is it now psychological, and that's the reason he's not throwing punches?
I don't know. It's kind of what he's said out, and he's come out and said he was scared of getting beat, and it's changed him and all this kind of stuff. But there's no shame in getting beat by Stipe Miocic when you're a relative novice to this sport, by beaten by somebody who's so established as a heavyweight and who was then the heavyweight champion. There's no shame in that at all. The biggest concern is the fact that Dana White and everyone around Francis Ngannou seems to have now just completely threw him under the bus. This was a guy they were building up as the next heavyweight champion of the world, and in the aftermath of this fight, Dana was saying his ego's out of control. The guy was pulling back down to earth. So I felt like saying, "Come on, Dana, you pumped his ego up. You're part of the problem. You built him into being something he probably wasn't, or isn't, or may never be." So to now say Francis Ngannou's ego's out of control is kind of such a weird thing, because I feel like the UFC picked them out of France, took them all the way to Las Vegas to the Performance Institute and went, right, you're going to be based here now, and we're going to basically mould you into the next superhero style baddest man on the planet. And when he hasn't delivered and then completely and utterly froze in front of the headlights like he did on Saturday, now they seem like they can't push him out the door quick enough. It's such a weird situation. I've got no idea what's going on, but what wouldn't be surprised me if we see Ngannou leave Las Vegas now and maybe head out to Albuquerque with Greg Jackson, or even go over to the other coastline to ATT, or over to AKA with Cormier. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
So, Dan, psychologically, what do you think was going on in Ngannou's head? Have you seen it before from a fighter?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was smothered, he was mauled in his last fight, and that is a very disarming is probably the best word to use. When you're a big power puncher and you know that as long as you touch someone clean, they'll fall over, and you don't manage to do that in 25 minutes when you knew full well you had the ability to do it, and went in there with 100% belief, of course it's going to be a massive impact on your ego. And then, your next fight, you step up against someone like a Derek Lewis, who is probably pound for pound has got a similar punching power, and he's very unpredictable and very tough. I mean, he just didn't seem to want to pull the trigger. He didn't seem to want to take that risk. He wouldn't even step into range to throw his jab. No. He just seemed massively intimidated, and I think maybe, especially coupled with Dana's comments about how his ego has gotten out of control. When you step into the octagon, sometimes you have to leave your ego behind, because you know that you can get cleaned out with a good clean punch. And there may have been a realization in that first round that, I've been a bit too up on myself. I've been celebrating myself a little bit too much, and if I lose this, I'm going to look really silly.
But that's what made him great. That's what made him brilliant. That's what made him tear through people. That ability, that idea in his own head that he couldn't be beat.
But that's all down to his confidence, and now he has been beaten comprehensively. And I said this. I think I said this last week. If Miocic had beaten him in 2 rounds, if he'd have taken him down, choked him out, Ngannou could have maybe written that off to a simple mistake he made in the fight. The fact that he got beaten up for 25 minutes and had 5 opportunities at the start of each round to land that clean punch and was never able to. I mean, he clearly thought, and with the investment that the UFC were putting behind him as well, as far as bringing him out to Vegas and stuff, he must have thought that everyone thought he was going to be the champion.
Yeah.
So, he may have taken his foot off the gas a little bit. He cleared off to France. I'm not sure what he was doing out there, but I think 2 weeks before the fight. And you could tell that Dana in the press conference wasn't happy about that either. He very much felt like Ngannou was kind of taking it too lightly and leaning too much on his natural punching power.
Well, that's interesting then, because in retrospect, we look at what Miocic did to him. Because I think at the time we said, realistically, why did you leave it go 25 minutes? Why didn't you finish it? If you've got so much dominance, it shouldn't have got to the judges' scorecard. But really what he did is he broke him, not just as a fighter, as a man.
I don't think Stipe set out to do that, though. I think Stipe, we criticised him at the time for not pulling the trigger and getting Ngannou out of there. I don't think he deliberately thought, I will systematically break this man down so he never comes back again.
Rocky 3.
He's got no idea how Ngannou's going to deal with defeat. But clearly he's dealt with it in a really bad way. And as I say, I think the only thing he can do now is to have a complete change of his surroundings again, because psychologically it's going to be really difficult for Ngannou, especially with the criticism from Dana, to bounce back from a performance like this without making drastic changes, because He's now a marked man in the heavyweight division. The rest of the heavyweights see him as a marked man, absolutely, former champion. That's, that won't throw a punch at you. I'll fight him all day. And I just think he now needs to go and kind of rebuild himself. And the fans as well. What fans got to queue up now to buy a Francis Ngannou ticket?
Me.
A guy who refuses to throw a punch. I think he needs to go away. He needs to rebuild himself. They need to do a bit of a 24/7 series about how he's back and he's killing people in the gym and all that stuff and build this guy up again. But I'd be surprised if we see him fight again in the next 6 months.